Welcome to Heart Home Community's most recent Baldwinsville Community Update. I'm your host, Shelley Hoffman. Hey everybody, I'm here with Cheif Mike Lefancheck. And Cheif, it's exciting to have you. We're a little late in December, but I think the timing is going to wind up being perfect. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you, Shelley? And I do agree. I think it's good timing for us right now.
Absolutely. So, normally we start the day with a little bit of a chit chat and stuff, but as a mom, I know you're going to talk about something that has me concerned, which is, things that the kids are listening to or taking part in with TikTok. So if you don't mind diving into that this morning, just in case somebody can only listen for a couple minutes.
Absolutely.
What's that like on your end?
From our end, for everyone that knows, Shelley and I were just talking for literally about 1 minute beforehand. And she said how frustrating it is as a parent. And what we're talking about is this quote unquote TikTok challenge and alleged threats to schools and things. And I know a lot of people that work in the schools and many of our members here have children that go to school here. All of my children are graduates of Baker High School. And from our end, it's involving and it's creates a great deal of quote unquote stress for us. It really does because, I've mentioned to you many times that the most important relationship we have is with our school district, because if you look at the number of students and staff and teachers and everyone else that's on that campus during the day, that's the highest concentration of people in the village. So for us, the school campus is of paramount importance and concern. We're very fortunate that we have school resource officers embedded in our buildings. So we've got one from Baldwinsville Police at the high school, Officer Jenna Quattrini, one at Turkey Junior High School, Officer Andrew Nartoli, and then Deputy Katie Kruger's down at Ray, part of the sheriff's office. And those SROs, having those SROs in the school, allow us to have some very good communication with school officials. So if a student comes forward and indicates that they've seen something on social media and someone has made a threat or posted images of weapons or things that are inappropriate, we can immediately begin to investigate and look into that matter. First off, let me say I'm very appreciative of those brave students that do come forward and do report that, because then it's something that we can look at and look into. And is our process immediately then goes into what's that threat assessment. So we immediately start our threat assessment process. And for us, what that looks like is, first off, we're going to utilize whatever resources we need to. Inevitably, that means more than just our school resource officer. So normally, Lieutenant Mike Lockwood and myself are immediately notified. Lieutenant Lockwood generally takes immediate command and control of the investigation. We'll involve additional members of our department or in other departments if we need to. We're going to immediately try and determine who made the threat, how serious is the threat, the type of threat that was occurred. Was it verbal? Was it on social media? Do we need to get some subpoenas to look at social media's some social media accounts, people's phones, computers? Does any of that need to occur? Because where did this originate from and who are we dealing with? Are there witnesses to this? Are there other people that heard this? What exactly came to us? Is it firsthand, secondhand, thirdhand? Because that's how, as you know, with children in the school, rumors get started. Right. And they might hear a rumor. And is it a real threat or is it not? And that's all part of the threat assessment process. And then,
well, you're kind of under a time crunch too, because a lot of times it'll happen on, we'll say Sunday night about Monday or Monday night about Tuesday. It's not something that you have 3, 4, 5 days to look into it.
No.
Nothing happened. You might be able to backtrack it. So I just want to reiterate, like, sometimes the kids will tell me something and, you guys are already aware of it, but it's a 24-hour, 12-hour turnaround sometimes that you need to do it in.
Or correct? Even shorter, and sometimes it's during the school day. So this will come up, that someone will say something or, and unfortunately, we're dealing with kids 13, 14, 15, 16 who sometimes say something that they think is funny, but unfortunately in this day and age is anything but. And I can tell you that, we've had incidents this year where, we have to go to students' homes and knock on the door and talk to mom and dad and then explain to them that we need to search the residence to ensure that, this student does not have access to weapons. And if access isn't going to be granted, we'll get a search warrant if we have to. For the most part, we found parents to be mostly cooperative. Some are a little taken aback and upset that this is happening, and rightfully so on their part. And I think the anger and frustration really needs to be directed back towards their child that's made these statements. We've made arrests this year on school threats, and if we're doing that, it's for a couple of reasons. A, because of the seriousness of the threat, and B, oftentimes because we want to ensure that that child is going to receive the proper mental health evaluation to determine is there something more going on there, and is this child in need of some more robust mental health assistance and intervention and counseling than maybe they have been getting in the past.
So can I ask a question on that? Because we had a conversation, it was more based towards COVID and some mental health issues that were coming up because of people being locked together, that you had a protocol that you had to follow for that before mental health. You could do anything for the police department. You had to have somebody else come in. Does that change when it's a school threat or the school's involved because they have their own guidance counselor system, or is it pretty much the same process when you're talking about mental health with a juvenile?
Well, for us, if we've got a child that's made a threat against other people, then we can look at that and say, okay, this is a legitimate threat that was made. This person potentially is a danger to themselves or someone else. So we could take them into custody under 9.41 of the mental hygiene law and transport them to CPEP for mental health evaluation. If parents are willing to do that, we can have mom and dad transport down. We'll follow them down to ensure that they get there and get to the hospital and are seen. If it's not something that occurred right then, sometimes, to your point, we'll get information about a threat or something that was posted 24, 48, 72 hours ago, where that immediacy isn't occurring. And that's something that will work with the district attorney's office or the county attorney's office, depending on the age of the child, to determine if an arrest is appropriate based upon what's occurred. So each case is kind of looked at on an individual basis to determine, again, what is the real threat. So we'll immediately move into what our threat assessment process is. And I'm not going to talk 100% about everything we do, but I think that gives a pretty good snapshot of the level of seriousness, the resources that we're going to bring to bear if we need to, because for us, the safety and security of the school, the students, the staff there is of utmost paramount to us. So that's kind of our process. That's what we do. It is very involved, and it involves a lot of manpower and a lot of resources. And if we need to keep people after work, and inevitably, we're going to get something like this at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. As you know, the school day ends at the junior high and high school level shortly thereafter by 2:30. So oftentimes we're going to people's houses. We're trying to track down kids who might be a witness, who might have heard something, because again, we're really trying to figure out what's the level of seriousness about this. And then we're going to go to that child's home who made those threats, who made those statements, and determine are there weapons, if there are weapons, because we've had these incidents where there were weapons in the house. Fortunately, those have been secured, but we need to determine, are those weapons secured? How are they secured? Are they in a safe? Are they just locked up? What's the actual security measures that they've got? So, and then if necessary, we have gun locks here, trigger locks, things that we can assist parents with to ensure that weapons are stored safely and securely, because obviously, as we just saw, Michigan parents just got arrested and charged for not securing weapons appropriately and those types of things. And that's the last thing we would want to occur here. So some of what we do is an educational process as well as that threat assessment process. We don't go into this with a determination of, oh, we want to make an arrest. No, our real focus here is on threat assessment, determining how serious it is, and then getting whatever help to the students that are involved as necessary.
Well, the most recent one that comes to mind is, and I do know that there were parents that kept their kids home from the Baldwinsville School District, and I'm sure across the country, right? And
Yep.
it's because on TikTok it said National, I believe it was School Shooting Day. And so was it an actual threat in Baldwinsville, or was it just because it was put out there? Because again, you always think your child won't do it or this person won't do it, but at the same time, you send your child to school on a day where something like that's out there and something horrible does happen. You have to live with that the rest of your life. So I'm not gonna lie, my kids went to school. I live so close to it. I don't know if that gives me a false sense of security or what, Chief, but as far as being able to protect them, and you guys are right down the road. But I do know some people that they just couldn't. It didn't make sense to them to send their kids to school because something that was on TikTok, which is crazy, right?
Well, it's
Not crazy not to send their kids. Crazy that we have to
it's
deal with
crazy.
it.
I just think it speaks to kind of the world we're living in today. And I'm going to kind of throw him under the bus here, but my lieutenant, Mike Lockwood, many of you might know him. He's got children in the school presently right now. His children are younger than mine. Mike's a little younger than I am. So, his students, his girls went to school, but he told me, he goes, oh no, he and his wife were getting messages, are you sending your kids to school? And once they said they were, I think some folks felt a little more comfortable that they were sending their children to school. But, I know a lot of people that work in the school, and people reported to me, geez, there's a lot less kids in school today. I understand parents making that decision. I can understand that logic, and I'm not going to argue with it at all. That's each and every person's own thought process as to what they think is the right thing to do for them, their children, and their family. And you kind of alluded to it earlier, on top of COVID and all the things we've been dealing with for that for nearly 2 years now. It seems crazy that you and I started talking on this platform. It's going to be coming up on 2 years in the not too distant future, in just a few months. You look back at the number of people that were watching us the first few weeks. We had nearly 2,000 people every week watching what we had to say and what we were talking about. And we're still dealing with many of those same things. And now it's involved the school, and it's on a larger scale. So, do we have threats specific to Beeville? I think was your initial question. For this particular last week, no, we did not. But obviously, rumors fly. We hear different things. We had school resource officers in the schools. So I think it helps that we can get on top of those things a little bit quicker because, we do have someone there, which is helpful to us. And we have that long-standing relationship with the school district and having someone in the school for over 20, 30 years. So, but go ahead.
Can I ask another TikTok? Just
Sure.
because we're on that topic. At the beginning of the school year, I think it was Durgee. It was a problem at Durgee and Baker, but I want to think it was Durgee that sent out the letter, just making parents aware of a TikTok trend where kids were going into bathrooms and removing the dispensers and items like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it stopped. Or at least it stopped in the regards that the school wasn't sending out letters anymore. But did you guys have to go in and help and assist in that, or was it something that the district mainly was dealing with? Because that is theft, right? If you're
the district was dealing with it, and because we have school resource officers in the school, that meant we're dealing with it too. And yes, that was occurring here, and there were some incidents, and I wouldn't say it was like all the time and every day, but there was a challenge amongst these kids to cause some damage or steal things out of teachers' rooms, and those are things that, of course, we get involved in, and we try and do as much as we can while we're in the school to educate, be visible, try and mitigate those issues before they occur. But as we look at our young people, and even not so young people, even people my age, sometimes they get caught up on what's going on social media and get caught up in the euphoria of the likes and the people's attention and the views. And some folks think that that's their path to stardom and to get that attention that maybe has been lacking over the last 18 to 24 months because of the COVID and the isolation and the remote learning and all those types of things. So it's been a very challenging time, I think, for everyone. And this is not a Baldwinsville thing. This is a community, a statewide, a nationwide type of issue that's going on. This is not something that's germane just to the village of Baldwinsville and the Baldwinsville community at large. This is something that everyone's dealing with. And this is how it's impacting us in our community, which I think is important for people to be aware of and to know that these types of things are happening and that we're dealing with them.
Yeah. Well, and you had mentioned talking about COVID and leading into it. I mean, I'm not going to say it's 100%. It's just my opinion, but a lot of people were really bored when they were locked in their houses, and it gave an outlet. And I think, social media grew and challenges were a lot of fun. And most of the challenges were exercise challenges, or they were just kind of funny things. It's a shame that it's taken kind of a vandalistic turn in some incidences. Yeah. Just my 2 cents there, Chief.
I don't think anyone's going to argue that point with you. And, sometimes idle minds and that whole concept. So, but again, from our perspective, if a threat is made, if we receive a threat, for us, it becomes a critical incident for us to investigate, to determine the legitimacy of it, to immediately process that threat assessment in the quickest, most expeditious, but thorough manner that we can. And that's what we do. And obviously, we have a very close working relationship with the sheriff's office and the state police. So if additional resources are needed, those are available to us. And, if a child makes a threat, we're going to end up at that child's home. We're going to be talking to mom and dad, and we're going to be searching to ensure that no weapons are in the home and that they have access, and that, we're going to do everything we can to try and ensure that our community remains safe.
Nice. And I think, again, like I said, living in the village, maybe I have a false sense, but it is nice that the police station is, right down the road from the compound where Baker, Durgee, and Eldon are. And Ray's not really that far. You have McNamara and Palmer that are a little bit farther out, but really it doesn't take you guys too long and they're outside of the village, obviously. Those ones. But if something's happening, like you said, sometimes you'll go and be backup or assist or who can get there.
Our response time for us is averages about 4 minutes. That includes the point in time if you were to pick up the phone and call 911, takes them, between 1 to 2 minutes to dispatch, 1.5 to 2 minutes to get the call dispatched to us, and then it takes us a couple more minutes to show up. And that's a non-emergency call. So on emergency calls, it's going to be quicker. And it doesn't matter if something's outside the village or not. Our SROs are partnered with elementary schools. One's partnered with Eldon. One of ours is partnered with Van Buren and also up at Palmer. And then Deputy Kruger partners with Reynolds and McNamara just because she's down there at Ray. So it's a little bit more convenient for her to partner with those. And our office is centrally located, but our road patrol officers, they're out on patrol every day. And obviously the campus is an important place for us. And, if you've got kids in school, I know somebody that works at the school and, she reported to me, she goes, geez, the kids were mentioning that they saw, police around the campus. And that's purposeful because we want to provide that sense of security to know that the police are around and that hopefully they feel a little bit better knowing that they're patrolling, we're around, just to ensure that nothing untoward does happen. So, that's important for us too, is that providing that visual, mental level of security. Just like you said, you live close to a school, you see our cars drive by. I don't want you to have a false sense of security, but I certainly want you to know that our members are out there and that we're available if needed.
Awesome. So I know that, we focused most of our pre-talk about, TikTok and me from a parent standpoint, you from the police standpoint. But I know you mentioned there was a couple other things that happened in the village since we last spoke that you wanted to put out to the audience as well.
Yeah. Shelley, I have probably talked ad nauseum about this topic, but on my way into work today, didn't happen in the village, but outside it was in the Baldwinsville community outside the village, so it wasn't our call. But I heard them put out a file 5, which is a stolen vehicle, and somebody had left their spare set of keys in the car, and now that vehicle's gone, just a few days before Christmas. So if folks could please lock your keys in your house, lock your car, and that'll help prevent crime. How many times we talked about it, but as I'm driving to work today, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be talking to Shelley, and here's this thing that happened, and just as a reminder to folks, I know life gets busy, we get hectic, but there are folks out there that come in and try and see if there's the cars are open, and then the first thing they do when they get in them, they put their foot on the brake and they push the button, and if the car starts, off they go. So if people could just not do that and lock your car doors at night, that would be great. And then I'm a little bit tired. I got to bed about 2 this morning. Our officers dealt with an incident last night. It was a violation of an order of protection. A person showed up at the victim's apartment, kicked the front door in. Our officers got there, and unfortunately, the subject was combative. One of our officers ended up going to the hospital. Another member of the sheriff's office had to arrive. Lieutenant Lockwood came in. I came in, and we called in another officer early. The suspect was in our booking room. He smashed his own head into the wall. I literally watched him do it before we could get to him. He hit his head into the wall 2 or 3 times. We now have got a hole in our booking room wall. He defecated on himself and in our patrol car and things. So the amount of resources that go into calls like that we deal with is it took 3 people to effect the arrest. Myself, the lieutenant, and another officer we called in early to assist doing paperwork and transport to the Justice Center. Obviously, Lieutenant Lockwood went with the officer that was injured to the hospital. I got a text about 4 o'clock this morning that they had finally been seen and were leaving. I stayed here to supervise the paperwork aspect and to ensure that the case was being investigated and administratively handled properly. So, and then obviously we've got to have our cleaning company clean and disinfect the patrol vehicle. And fortunately, we've got a great relationship with them. And by what's it now, 10:30, before you and I came on, about 20 minutes before, they let me know that vehicle's back in service. So we were very fortunate there. But things like that occur. I've told you before, this is a tough time of year for us around the holidays. It's routine that we deal with domestic disputes and mental health calls this time of year because inevitably there's issues over child visitation, who's supposed to have who on these particular holidays from Thanksgiving to New Year's, as well as many people feel isolated this time of year, even under normal circumstances, let alone what's going on with COVID and families not being able to gather potentially, or people not being able to come in, or families that have suffered loss and of life and or from the disease. And so this just presents a lot of issues for us on the law enforcement side of things. And we deal with those as they come up, but it's something that does occur, and just want the community to be aware of that as well.
Well, and I've heard it pretty much my entire life that domestic disputes usually are the toughest because there's so much emotion involved in them. If somebody's robbing a bank, they're vested. They did some planning. Or if it's just taking the car. But when it's a domestic dispute, it's just those emotions, and you have to look at it from a police standpoint. A lot of times, on the public, we hear the different stories and people pass judgment, but it's heat of the moment. It's obviously somebody's, hurt or feels like something is against them. I'm not a mental health person, but it's horrible to think about it happening to somebody. I feel bad for the person who you had to arrest, even hearing everything that you guys went through. Like the whole situation is always just as sad all the way around.
It is. It really is. And, the judges issue orders of protection, which are vitally important for the safety of those victims. And then, time goes on, and sometimes there's communication between the parties, and then that person goes over there, and inevitably problems arise, and we show up. For us, it's an immediate arrest, because if there's a violation of the order of protection, and oftentimes what I'm referring to is those stay away orders of protection, where the judge has barred any contact at all with the suspect from that victim. So if they're on scene when we get there, immediately it's an arrest for us. There's no talking, there's no reconciliation. We have to make an arrest. That's our policy. So because it's a court order that's been violated, so we're going to affect that arrest. And there's, to your point, there's a lot of emotion going on both sides, and oftentimes there's children involved, and there's years in most cases of pent up frustration, anger, happiness, sadness. They've run the gamut. Many times these folks have had relationships that have gone on for years, and they've kind of had their ups and downs and peaks and valleys. And obviously when we're there, they're in as deep of a valley as they're probably going to be. And, so we're catching these folks right at the very worst for them. And, this is not one of the good times in that relationship. And it's just gotten to that point in time. And whether it's a custody dispute issue, whether it's a physical dispute, whether it's an order of protection violation, those things all present their own and unique set of challenges for each and every call.
Yeah. You've said that before too, that when you're going there, you're catching people not at their best, know?
And I think really true.
I thought that was interesting, or genuine when you said it, probably a year and a half ago when we first started talking and you were going for the mental health calls, because people, if it's not their typical behavior, and, I don't know the gentleman or the females involved in this, obviously, but, there's patterns, there's this, there's that. But sometimes with COVID, it was like the first time and people were embarrassed and they were ashamed. So I thought it was good for them to hear that you guys know you're seeing it. You're not, necessarily judging them in that moment of what's happening. Obviously there's people you probably see over and over and over again, unfortunately.
Yeah. And
that's a little bit different, but
yeah, it is. And when we deal with the same folks over and over, and you're trying to understand the psychology involved of this, whether it's a cycle of abuse or whatever the situation might be in that those folks are involved in, substance abuse, physical abuse, alcohol abuse, whatever it is, the spiral and the circle sometimes that catches up with them. But no, we understand that, we're generally catching people, whether it's a DWI arrest, whatever it is, it's not their best day that we're dealing with them, for the most part. So,
but speaking of driving, if you have something else, I want to. Okay. When I was talking to the mayor the other day, and I didn't notice it until he said this. I don't know if that's a reflection on my driving or not, Chief. But I guess a gentleman had come to one of the board meetings and talked about Elizabeth Street and East Oneida Street, and people maybe gliding through stop signs or not coming to a full stop. And when we talked last month, you had mentioned you were probably some of your officers would be patrolling around the East Oneida Street a little bit. So if you look at the stop signs, for those of you that didn't know this from the mayor or haven't seen it, there's now wording at the underneath the stop that says "stop" means stop, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the mayor said that the gentleman who made the initial suggestion or observation said he has seen a difference. Are you guys seeing a difference there?
Yeah, we are. And so what we did there is we did some enforcement, as well as, the East Oneida Street and Virginia Street and Albert Palmer Lane, right there by the school. And I've worked here long enough to remember when there were no stop signs at those two intersections. There was only stop signs on Virginia Street, not on Oneida Street. So it's better with those stop signs there. And we can't put those stop means stop at every intersection in the village, because then they don't become effective. Right. But those intersections where there's so much traffic and people tend to just, stop quick and then move forward. Obviously, we can't be in every location at once, because there's other areas of the village that people say, hey, we've got folks speeding. Excuse me, like Smoky Hollow Road or Salina Street or Canton Street or Tampa Street, those long stretches where people drive fast, or, Canton and Tampa Street, where those stop signs sometimes people don't stop at either, or whether it be the four corners and the issues associated with the four corners that we're all very familiar with. So Mike Lockwood worked with that particular person. We ordered some signs, had them put up, and that's something we'll continue to monitor and keep an eye on. But so far, we're glad to hear that feedback from him, that's been successful to start. And I think it goes back to the philosophy of our department, which is that community policing. So if we get input from the citizens, we like to take that, evaluate it, see what we can do to work together and hopefully solve a problem. And we might not be aware of every problem, but somebody who lives right on that corner, to them that's a real issue. So for us, we want to do everything we can to try and resolve the problem as much as possible. So I'm not sure we're ever going to solve the problem at that particular intersection all the time. Just like with the four corners, I don't think we're ever going to solve every problem at the four corners. It's just not possible. So all we can do is try and mitigate to the best we can, and to reduce those incidents.
Now, I've noticed a little. I didn't notice people going through or not stopping, but I definitely thought that's a nice subtle way of reminding people, to make sure that you stop, and you're by the school. So, but like I said, I have that 16-year-old driver. I don't know if when you saw Taylor at Ace the other day, if she mentioned that, I told her East 09 is being watched. She better slow down.
No, she didn't mention that to me. She was, I had to make a couple trips back and forth in the same day. Of course, forgot to get something the first time. So, but I was able to finish that little home improvement project. So, and she was happy to check me out both times. So.
Nice.
Yeah, smile on her face. But just want to wish everyone happy holidays. Hope people are able to enjoy time with their family and be safe as possible. Obviously, the new variant of COVID out there. Just hope everyone is safe and healthy as they can be. And we'll talk to people in the new year unless there's anything else.
No, I think that's pretty much it. It covered you. You made me feel a little bit better with the whole social media, and how you guys respond. So I appreciate that. And
Sure thing.
You enjoy your holiday and Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the new year. Bye, Chief.
I look forward to